Did you know that over the past year, 83% of businesses have reported insider attacks, with 48% of them reporting an increase in the number of insider attacks they're seeing? That means that your people, even unintentionally, are often the weakest link in your organization's cyber defenses. Yes, today we're going to be talking about insider threats, those risks that come from within, including careless users, stolen credentials, or even trusted third parties. We're going to be covering what those threats look like, what you're at risk of losing, and more importantly, how you and your team can spot the subtle warning signs before it's too late. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Kinnett, CEO and founder of Eternal Networks. And here at Eternal Networks, we believe in empowering businesses with the knowledge that they need to succeed. So every Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I go live on all of our socials to discuss different educational technology topics to help empower others. At Eternal Networks, we're dedicated to creating safe and secure environments for businesses to thrive in doing what they love. And helping to educate others on technology and cybersecurity is a key part of our mission. At the end of this live stream, I'll also be answering questions from the audience. So if you have any questions as we're going on today's topic or anything else, please throw them in the comments and I'll make sure to cover those at the end. That being said, let's get on to today's topic. Insider threats. Insider threats remain one of the largest risks in organizations today. As I go, I'm going to be sharing a bunch of statistics. I shared some in the introduction. These come from various different studies. I'm not going to post them in the comments, but if you're curious where these are, if you want to go back and read these articles and these studies, please let me know. Send me a message. We'd be happy to provide you those references separately. As the attack surface expands through hybrid work, cloud services, and now AI, insider risks are multiplying. And the perception of organizations is finally catching up a little bit to the risk that exists out there. There has been historically a disproportionate concern over external attacks when compared to insider threats. But 64% of organizations are now viewing insider threats, malicious, negligent, AI compromise, any type of insider threat as more dangerous than external attacks. So let's start off by talking about the different types of insider threats. I'm going to cover 7. Some of these are really subtypes of the main type. We're still talking about the classic insider threat categories here, right? Compromised credentials, malicious, negligent, and third-party insiders. But we're going to cover a couple of others that are very more specific than those. Let's start with malicious insiders, also known as turncloaks. So this is someone inside the organization who deliberately misuses their access to harm the business, steal data, or sabotage systems, often for financial gain, revenge, or maybe it's on behalf of a competitor that they're getting ready to go and work for. This is a growing area, and according to a recent study, accounts for as much as 25% of insider incidents. An example of this would be a disgruntled IT admin that exports all customer data to sell it to a competitor before quitting the company. All right, our next type is the negligent insider. This is an employee who accidentally exposes data or creates vulnerabilities by being careless or ignoring security policies. This is by far the most common type of insider threat. Most insider threats are not people that are out to do harm. These are people that are, by one reason or another, accidentally doing things. And this is by far the most frequent cause of insider incidents. An example of this is a user clicking on a phishing link in an email or from a website and unknowingly downloading malware that compromises the corporate network. All right, let's talk about the next one. This is a compromised insider. This is an employee whose account or device has been hijacked by an external attacker. Could be from phishing, malware, credential stuffing. It doesn't really matter. But the attacker now has access to all of the internal systems via that user's identity. This is the costliest type of incident when you consider it per incident. An example of this might be a finance employee reuses a weak password that's been leaked in a breach, and a hacker uses it to then gain access and wire money from that company's bank account. So it can be very detrimental and very costly to the organization. All right, our next type is the data hoarder. This is somebody who collects and stores sensitive data beyond what they need, potentially becoming a data breach in waiting, even if their intent isn't malicious. So an example of this might be an engineer that makes local copies of customer data just in case, right? And stores it on a personal USB drive, which is then later lost, right? That exposes your risk of them storing all of that data that they really don't need. All right, number 5, this is the third party or contractor insider. This is a vendor, consultant, or partner that's been granted internal access, but fails to follow good security hygiene. Or even worse, they act maliciously with that access that they have. An example of this might be a contractor that's working remotely that fails to patch and update their laptop. A vulnerability is exploited, giving attackers a backdoor into your environment through that account. All right, next one. This is the unintentional insider. We'll call this the oops threat. This is really a subset of negligent insiders. These are employees who generally make accidental mistakes, right? Such as emailing the wrong person or misconfiguring cloud storage with no awareness of the damage that's caused. An example of this might be a marketing employee who accidentally sends a spreadsheet with thousands of customer records to the wrong email in their list, right? I've gotten this before, right? There's, I don't know, tens of thousands of Mikes and Michaels out there, right? And I've received emails from clients with information that was not intended for me, it was intended for a different Michael. So that's an example of this, of sharing that information with the wrong email. Our last one is the departing or former employee, also known as the ghost insider. This is someone who still has access to systems after they left the organization. This could be a mistake, right? A poor offboarding process, or it might be that they've retained credentials that we're not aware of during offboarding. So the example of this might be a former IT admin or developer who logs into the company's GitHub repo, right, 6 months after quitting, and then deletes critical code that organization relies on. It's also important to note that AI is impacting all of these insider threats, all of these different ones that I've talked about. AI is significantly amplifying those traditional insider threats by enabling faster, stealthier, and more scalable misuses of data and access. Malicious insiders can now use AI to automate attacks or evade detection. Negligent users might unintentionally leak sensitive data through a public AI tool or prompt misuse. Additionally, AI also introduces new risks like prompt injection, data poisoning, and shadow AI use that can extend the attack surface far beyond what your current legacy security controls might be designed to handle. All right, now that we know the different types of insider threats, let's talk a little bit more about some of the trends, tools, and visibility gaps that we're seeing. 56% of organizations have experienced at least one insider incident in the past year, according to one study. In complex digital environments, which is getting to be almost every organization today, only 44% have reported that they're using behavioral analytics, even though those tools are essential for spotting anomalies, and AI-powered insider tactics are becoming stealthier every day. AI isn't just making insider threats stealthier, it's also shifting how they operate. The rise of generative AI means that attacks are faster, they're a little more subtle, and they exploit valid credentials and user behavior patterns. Even former employees pose threats, right, with that ghost insider, particularly when they're not removed from systems in time. Security experts are now stressing that offboarding must be a coordinated and, where possible, automated process or your organization risks sabotage, data theft, or unauthorized system access. A sobering real-world case in this, the U.S. Department of Justice recently revealed that over 300 companies were infiltrated by North Korean operatives posing as remote IT workers. And this was enabled by generative AI, deepfakes, and weaknesses in remote hiring and monitoring practices. All right, now let's talk a little bit about why it matters. Like, why should you care about insider risk? The reality is insider risk is no longer hypothetical. It's pervasive, it's evolving, and it's increasingly expensive. The biggest threats are coming from within: negligent actions, compromised credentials, and insider malicious behavior, even when it's orchestrated by external groups through impersonation or AI, which is a chilling development, right? Some of these do originate externally, right? Phishing attack originates externally and could probably be classified as an external attack, but without an insider taking an action, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm including that in our conversation today. Traditional defenses aren't going to cut it anymore. Organizations need prevention first strategies wherever possible. You need automated offboarding, as I already mentioned, right, to make sure that any users that leave, all of their access is revoked. You need behavioral analytics. You need to be able to monitor for things like a large number of files being downloaded from your SharePoint or OneDrive sites, or a large number of documents being emailed outside of the organization. You need to be able to monitor for those type of behavioral analytics. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those. And you also need to build an insider risk aware culture within your organization. But now let's dig a little bit into what's at risk here. When an insider threat happens, right, when an attack takes place that originates inside, this is really what's on the line for you and your business. First of all, customer and employee data. Leaked personal data doesn't just hurt trust, it also can trigger regulatory fines and other costs and expenses related to providing monitoring, identity theft monitoring and protections for those that had their personal data leaked. There's obviously risk to your financials. Financial accounts can be breached through insider access to payment systems or accounting platforms to drain funds or to transfer your hard-earned, revenue out of the organization. Trade secrets and intellectual property, that could be source code if you are developing anything proprietary, research and development data, proprietary strategies, any of your intellectual property, right? This is all prime targets for theft. Also, your IT and cloud infrastructure. Insiders that have admin credentials can disable backups, delete servers, or create hidden access points to gain access to your data and to cause havoc. And ultimately, this can all affect your brand and your reputation. Customers lose trust instantly if an insider breach makes the news, sometimes permanently. After a major insider breach, it can take years to rebuild customer trust that was lost in an instant, proving that the damage really goes far beyond short-term finances. Well, prevention is always the best method. It's important to understand and look for specific warning signs. So let's talk a little bit about some of the red flags. And there's really two types here. We're going to start with behavioral red flags. So this is what you want to look for in the behavior of your employees. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do an attack or anything, but something to keep in mind. If you see logging in excessively at odd hours or from unusual locations, if you have disgruntled employees that are showing frustration, that are withdrawing themselves or becoming increasingly hostile, if you have employees that are repeatedly bypassing or complaining about your security rules, if you have somebody that's suddenly interested in projects, teams, or data that's outside of their role. These are all behavioral warning signs. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about digital warning signs. This is other things that you should be aware of and keep an eye on, but things that can happen digitally to be able to track. Downloading or copying large amounts of data. I mentioned that, right? If you see them downloading large amounts of data from SharePoint or OneDrive, or emailing out large amounts of data, that's a red flag. If you see them using personal USB drives, personal email accounts, or cloud accounts to transfer files, another red flag. There's users that are requesting elevated privileges without a business justification, or you have users that are accessing HR files, payroll data, or financial systems suspiciously. Now, it's important that these signs don't always mean bad intent. These are just potential warning signs, right? Ignoring them can be risky, though. Pairing the behavioral monitoring and digital monitoring with access control is one of the most effective ways to stop insider threats before they escalate. Make sure you're only giving access to the information that they need and to nothing else. That's one of your best methods of preventative defense here. All right, you don't have to tackle insider threats on your own, especially when technology and cybersecurity can already feel overwhelming for so many business owners. If you're interested in looking for help, I've been helping businesses secure their technology for over 15 years. We hit 16 years next week. And I can tell you this, insider risks are one of the most overlooked, but often most damaging threats that companies face today. Whether it's negligence, stolen credentials, or a disgruntled employee, the cost of doing nothing is far greater than the cost of being prepared. If you're ready to protect your data, strengthen your defenses, and build a culture of security awareness into your business, I'd love to help however I can to get you started. Whether you just need a quick insider risk assessment or a full cybersecurity strategy, my team and I can walk you through the process and make sure that it's tailored to your organization and to your team. The link, if you'd like to connect with me for a one-on-one strategy session at no cost, will be in the chat and in the description below. I'll also include a transcript for today's topic and links to some of the resources discussed if you'd like to dig more into them. Let's see if there's any questions from our live audience. I don't see any questions in the comments that I can see here. So if you're on X and you respond to anything, unfortunately it doesn't show up here, but we'll see it afterwards. We're getting a bigger and bigger audience on X. I need to remember to point that out. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and add a question in there, it will pop up for me on here. So if any of you do have any questions after the fact, throw them in there. We'll make sure we get those answered and back to you. Thanks for joining today, whether you're one of our live viewers or whether you're watching this after the fact. If you found this information helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Give us some kind of feedback. Leave a comment with any questions or thoughts that you might have. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, please let us know. Your feedback helps us to create content that's more valuable to you, our audience. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss any updates. Remember, knowledge is power, and we're here to help you to navigate the world of tech and cybersecurity to help you thrive in your organization. If you need any further assistance, please feel free to reach out via DM, call our office, email us. You can visit our website at itnet.works. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.